Well, thank you, Jumana, for inviting me, and it's good to be back to Davos. Absent from it for 3 years. In January 2020, we entered into COVID, and in the last 3 years, China actually had no pandemic other than a brief, very intense pandemic in Wuhan in January, February, 3 years ago. But there are zero COVID restrictions that has been making the portfolio companies of ours operating in a little bit difficult and unpredictable environment. So we have been telling everyone to conserve cash, to go massively digital, and also try to be very resilient from a balance sheet point of view in order to conserve cash and remain competitive after the recovery. So so far so good, and right now we're seeing obviously the COVID restriction policies moved away, and we're feeling quite positive about going forward.
I've got to push back a little bit when you say that there was no pandemic in China. Of course, the pandemic is very much there now. We continue to see cases rising, fatalities rising. So how do you see that affecting the operating environment? Of course, the Chinese government wants to open up, but at the same time, there is still a healthcare situation to deal with.
Yes, that's right. I was going to say that the pandemic officially started a month ago, or maybe a month and a half ago, when the restriction policy are removed. So right now, we are watching very closely about the health of our employees and the families, and making sure that people got adequate support, because they are going through this rapid infection period, and infection rate is very high and fast. And I think it's going to be a chaotic next further 1.5 months, I think, to 2 months. Yes, as you also reported that the Chinese New Year is going to start in a few days, and there will be a lot of people going back home, and after Chinese New Year, coming back to work. So that stir-frying, if you will, in terms of the whole population is gonna probably making the COVID spread quite fast, and hopefully it will be over pretty soon. The hospitals are obviously very crowded, but we hope that China can get through this period very fast and with minimal damage.
Of course, also worth pointing out that throughout the course of the pandemic, China has been leaning on its own local vaccines to inoculate the population. But I don't want to spend too much more time speaking about the healthcare situation. I do want to ask about the economy, because the Vice Premier Liu He actually gave a speech here at the World Economic Forum a couple of days ago, and he set out some principles, namely that the focus going forward for government authorities is going to be on pushing the economy again, reinvigorating the economy, and also loosening some of the restrictions in the property sector. What sort of steps are you expecting them to take?
Yes, I think the overall tone has become definitively pro-business, and we are encouraged by that. Right now, I think we're obviously observing more government actions in terms of fiscal stimulus, in terms of monetary policies, and also various measures to encourage foreign investments as well, so that China can become more open. And the private sector sentiment has been somewhat low in the last 2-3 years, and I think there's various policies to encourage the private sector growth and continued investments. I think that will be really key to drive the economic growth and jobs. And